The inside of the skull is normally where some students kind of throw their hands up and say, I quit. But if you think about it as, I already know most of these structures, I'm only going to add a few more to it, then it's not that overwhelming. Because you still have the frontal bone, the sphenoid bone, the temporal bone, the parietal bones up here, and the occipital bones back here. So now let's just kind of look, do you see any structures that kind of stick out? And if you see what I'm looking at, you'll see there's a large hole. So there's a large hole in both of those skulls. Because this is a large hole, its name is foramen magnum, or literally large hole in Latin. So once you find the foramen magnum, it's pretty easy to find the rest of the structures, because then you'll have a hole to the side of it, just on the inside, and that's going to be your, over on this side and this side, that's your jugular foramen. And you can see over here, a large hole to the side is going to be jugular foramen. Then you'll hear me say this over and over again, go to the library, hold these bones and look at them yourselves, because you can't do this in a video. Put your finger right in that little indentation right there, and you'll find the tip of your finger fits into this indentation perfectly. And if you sit there and you're like, that's interesting, this structure right here is called the sella turcica, or in Latin it means Turkish saddle. This is where your pituitary gland sits. And your pituitary gland is very important, which is why the sella turcica is very important. The back of the saddle is called the dorsum cilia. Back of the saddle, dorsum cilia. The whole saddle itself, sella turcica. Now if you look around the sella turcica, this is where the most of your other structures are going to be. Where I'm sticking this probe right here is where the optic nerve goes through, so that's called the optic foramen. So the optic foramen, there's two of them on both sides, so there's two holes on both sides. Then you'll see down here, it looks a little confusing, but you'll see a round oval hole. That round oval hole is your foramen magnum, or sorry, foramen ovale. That little hole next to it is going to be your foramen spinosum, and the one down here is going to be the foramen lacerum. Same thing on this side, foramen ovale, foramen spinosum, foramen lacerum. The only other structures you have is right up here. And here, if you look, you can see that there's a little indentation or a bump. That bump, or that iceberg kind of sticking up, that's your crista galli. And your crista galli is important because on this side, that's where your olfactory nerve is going to be. And the crista galli separates the left side of the olfactory nerve becoming in contact with the right side of the olfactory nerve. That's important because it's important for you to know if scents are coming from left or right, because that could have been danger years ago. Now we probably don't use it as much. But the crista galli is important, and this whole thing that's sticking up, that whole yellow structure, is called your cribriform plate. And the cribriform plate sits in your ethmoid bone. And all these little indentations or holes are going to be your cribriform foramina. And if you look on this one, you can still make out all those different structures. Here the crista galli and the ethmoid bone's white, but still you can see crista galli, you can see the cribriform plate, and you can see those little indentations or holes, which are the cribriform foramina. Still see the sella turcica with the dorsum cilia in the back. You can see the olfactory foramen. You can see the foramen ovale, foramen spinosum, foramen lacerum, ovale, spinosum, lacerum. Then you can see the foramen magnum and the jugular foramen on the inside. And remember, don't get overwhelmed or say I quit. Just break it down into smaller steps, and it should be a lot easier if you're able to do that.